right, everybody. I've got my friend Tails with me here because he wanted to have a discussion on soulbound rewards cards. And this video is getting a lot of traction, and he's giving us a warning that, in his opinion, the soulbound cards could be the end of Splinterlands. So I'm going to go ahead and let him kind of give us at least the briefest, kind of recap on this video for those who haven't seen it yet. And then we can get into why I disagree a little bit.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on and talking about the video. I know it's gotten some comments here and there. So it's yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I know you mentioned that it's going to be the end of Splinterlands, and I mentioned that in the video as more of a hyperbole. You notice in my title I don't mention that, and I don't use it as clickbait or anything like that. But my point of the video is talking about how soulbound reward cards in its current form or iteration in the game introduces a loophole or potential exploit that could potentially be abused. And if it's abused at scale, which we can talk about a little bit later here, I'm sure today, it could be a problem for the economy, for the SPS token, and for the user base of Splinterlands. So my goal in the video was to identify what I saw as a loophole or a potential exploit, let the community know about it, and hopefully get attention to the Splinterlands team to say, okay, is this an issue? Let's at least get it on the radar. Let's look at the data, and if it is an issue, let's fix it, because we've had issues in the past that have come up. For example, the starter cards earning indefinitely, basically for just the cost of a spellbook one-time fee, and printing DEC and reward cards for, I don't know what the period of time was, like a year or so. And it caused certainly some eroding of value in the ecosystem for Splinterlands asset holders, and that value went to bot farmers who took advantage of that loophole. So rather than have a soulbound reward card loophole existing for a year plus, right? Let's identify it now and see what are the again, is it a problem? Does the data back that up? And if it is, let's not wait a year. Let's fix it sooner than that. Now, the good news is soulbound reward cards has only been out 2 weeks, so just one season. So if there is indeed an issue here, we have plenty of time to fix it. We're not looking at 12 months or whatever of issue here. Now, I know when we talk about the issue, some have been quick to point out that, well, SPS player staking will certainly help to curb bots and bot exploitation. And yes, I agree that SPS player staking, ideally and in theory, will certainly help to curb bot exploitation and farming. The challenge with that is we don't know when SPS player staking is going to arrive. It could be tomorrow. It could be next year. You just don't know, and it's not been published from an ETA or a time frame perspective when it'll be live in the game. And let's remember, SPS player staking has been in the original SPS white paper that was released over a year and a half ago, and it's still not here. So the other thing to remember as well, with SPS player staking being the silver bullet that's going to solve all problems in Splinterlands, along with the introduction of land, is, well, SPS player staking has a technical platform dependency on the validator license nodes, and that's that is brand new. That is something that Splinterlands is literally creating from scratch for their game and their ecosystem, and running on Hive here, and that's not to be taken lightly. If you remember with Axie Infinity specifically, with the introduction of the Ronin blockchain for them, which was essentially a bridge for them and will serve a similar purpose as the validator license node does for Splinterlands, within a few months of that being released and live, it was hacked for millions of dollars. I don't recall exactly how many hundreds of millions of dollars it was hacked for, but it was a bad look for Axie. It was bad news. They had to shut it down. They lost a ton of money. They lost a ton of trust, and it was bad for the game. So Splinterlands for sure doesn't want to introduce the validator license nodes, which brings on SPS player staking, and then all of a sudden we have, minting of, false DEC or SPS, and it causes even bigger problems for the game. So my only point here, going off on that little bit of a tangent for you, Steve, is to say that yes, SPS player staking will certainly help with curbing bot exploitation that could happen under Soulbound reward cards here, but there's no ETA timeframe or when that will actually happen in the game. So we can't count on that to fix the current identified loophole. So there's a quick background. I know it wasn't very quick, but hopefully that gives some context. And if anyone has any questions on what we're exactly talking about here, take a look at the video. You'll get more details there.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to have a link to the video in the description on my channel. And you did take, one of the major arrows in everybody's quiver as a counterpoint and just like threw it to the side there. Because player staking is one of the first things that almost makes it look like this would be a bit of a trap, because somebody who decided to try to exploit the system and run a lot of bot accounts, get the Soulbound rewards cards up to bronze or silver level, and then try to run those accounts strictly using Soulbound rewards cards to earn more Soulbound rewards cards and SPS. If they did that in mass, and then one day all of a sudden they said, well, you have to stake 1,000 SPS to get rewards in bronze, you have to stake 5,000 to get it in silver, then all of a sudden they're looking at needing to come up with, possibly hundreds of thousands of SPS that they don't currently own because they've just been dumping it, or their accounts can't earn it all anymore. And I would say that that is what can protect us from the exploit of a bot farm getting a lot of bot accounts running merely Soulbound rewards cards.
Yeah.
Now, you're right in saying that we don't know when it's supposed to happen, but I think it's because exactly what you described. They're trying to invent the whole new player staking model, I can't even say the word right now, the validator nodes and how they're going to work, but they could do something similar to what they've done for CP and just change CP requirements to SPS requirements. And I think they could do that without validators being live if push came to shove, because they already have locks to keep us out of certain leagues unless you have CP, and that's not requiring a validator node. So they could change that to being you have to have this much SPS staked. It wouldn't be that hard to check how much SPS an account has staked and say you can't move forward, you can't get anywhere, into any further league unless you put so much into your SPS staking. And I kind of feel like that's where they're going. And one of the reasons why they haven't done it yet is because they had to reimagine how this would work, mainly because of the change from earning DEC to earning SPS.
Yeah, I mean, I had this conversation with Bulldog as well, and I think the technical reason why they have not done that, as you mentioned, Steve, could they do it? Yes. But I think the reason why they've avoided doing it is because they want to have the ability to delegate or to rent SPS for players that don't have the staked SPS requirements. Excuse me. So that's and that's what the validator license nodes are supposed to help allow. So that's why I think they haven't made that switch from CP to SPS staked currently right now. But also, the thing to remember is even if the validator license nodes were online and everything was fixed, quote, with SPS player staking, we still don't have the details around, for example, how much SPS staking is required to earn, for example, in bronze or silver, whatever that happens to be. So that'll be important, because remember, SPS rank rewards have been rewarding all players, whether you're a bot farmer or a human. SPS rank battle rewards since the SPS airdrop ended, which was last summer, right? Like around July, I believe. So, for the last, 6 months roughly, everyone's been getting SPS. So in theory, all players should have had access to some SPS for staking on all of their accounts. So going back again to, the whole concept of timing, and I know Splinterlands is on this MVP or minimum viable product kind of release schedule where they just kind of push out whatever they can get out to work initially, and then they'll adjust it, fix it, and roll out more functions in the future. That's fine, but when you do that and you don't quickly release the required functionality that should be in place, you again introduce essentially exploits or loopholes in the economy. So when I mentioned that because ideally what should have happened is when SPS ranked rewards were released as rewards to all players, human or bot, they should have then immediately released the SPS staking requirements at that point in time, so that you couldn't basically free roll your accounts into SPS staking in the future by taking advantage of it's basically like having a jail with no locks or no guards. Basically, they're just giving out the SPS now, and then the SPS that they're giving out now can be used to unlock the jail cell in the future, right? So it's maybe a bad analogy, but it's really kind of where we're at right now. So
yeah, one thing I wanted to point out, and maybe you can see this on the screen, I feel like you said they didn't have this on the roadmap, and I'm not saying they're hitting their roadmap targets, but they do have replaced CP with SPS staking for Q2 of this year.
mm-hmm.
So it is here. And I have heard Matt say it in the town halls. So I don't think it's as far off at this exact thing.
Yeah.
As you're thinking, like, I don't think it's like a year away, but I do understand they want to release it at the same time as this. The SPS delegation and rental market. So because obviously they don't want to put a big door in front of people without a way for them to rent it. And I think the reason for that mostly is because they want the numbers to be big.
Yeah.
Because if you need a lot, but I'm willing to rent you a decent amount pretty cheap because I have a pretty good stake, then you're okay with it. But if you need a lot and you have to buy it, maybe you quit the game.
Yeah, that's fair. Can you go back to that roadmap? Image
sure.
real quick. So the reason why I'm saying Q4 is where I think it's probably realistic that validator license nodes come online is because look at the date of that roadmap. What does that say? 1.3 as the date of that roadmap. So it's about a month old, right?
Yeah.
Look at the land right there under Q1. Surveying and interactive map view. Aggie just said, I think in the last 24 hours, that surveying like land, like I think it's land, what they're calling land 1.0 is maybe the end of Q2. So in the last month, land went from Q1 to the end of Q2. So when they put SPS validator nodes in Q2 in that picture, I'm really imagining that to be Q4 just because of the track record of the team. Now, it's not a dig on the team necessarily. I mean, these things take time when you're innovating and creating new things, right? I mean, development efforts, you run into unknown issues and you have to fix them and you have to create stuff. And yeah, I mean, obviously that takes time. All I'm saying is that realistically, I don't believe SPS validators and the SPS delegation is probably going to come out in Q2. And that's why I'm saying you could have 9 months of soulbound reward card farming just because, again, look at the land example. In 1 month, that date's already shifted 1 quarter, maybe more. You know, they're already saying end of Q2. So that's all I'll say about that, Steve.
Yeah, and I understand that. And we haven't got an update on the Gladiator nodes, so we don't know exactly where that's at. And then I can pull on screen here. Here's Aggie's little, hey guys, more information on land 1.5. And did he give a time frame for when this will be out? The point is that within the next 3 to 4 months, we expect to have a staking thing. So that's where you're saying it's moving it into end of Q2, yeah. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I might need to be corrected on that. I'm actually just pulling that data from Aftersound's latest video. So don't quote me on that specifically, but I believe that's the time frame that they're looking at because they're changing the versions. We're going from land 1 to 1.5 to 2, so it's kind of hard to keep track
because
of all
to
the
me,
feature sets,
what they've kind of done is we're going to get version 1 out by end of Q1, which is just surveying. So and is what I understand. So we'll be able to survey our land, and then 1.5 will be out by the next 3 to 4 months, and that's where we actually can start staking cards on and start playing like the land version of the game. And full land or 2.0 is when we can actually craft spells, but that's not going to be probably till Q4, Q1 of next year. Which is a little disappointing because I kind of wanted that extra game mode to be coming out. But once the land game is playable, land games and resourcing games can bring in some interesting people who like to, be on leaderboards and be barons and be kings and and kind of go wild. So I'm pretty excited for that because I've played some pretty silly games on my phone and seen people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to be ranked number one and be the king of a virtual, area.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
Splinterlands is now going to have a mode of game like that. And the question is, do we have some of those really big whales in our ecosystem who are going to want to really, really go buy a bunch of time crystals and go wild and stuff like that?
Sure, certainly.
And then, so obviously, I don't want to just always go to the, hey, well, land is the savior, but land really is the savior for a lot of the problems that I feel like people bring up. The question is, will it be good enough and come soon enough?
Yep.
Because one of the problems is the rental market is very cheap right now, right? You alluded to the fact that you just stopped renting your deck out because it wasn't making you anything. And it does more for you in your mind just going ahead and farming these new cards, especially because you might be able to create some bot accounts that can just farm forever, in theory. Now,
Sure.
I'd argue they won't win very well unless you supplement them, because those decks don't make very complete teams. On the Soulbound Rewards
we're gonna
cards.
see about that. It's funny you mentioned that, Steve, because we're actually so tomorrow night, so this will be Saturday in the US, on Splinterlands TV. We're gonna have a pretty big crew here of folks helping me test this theory that we talked about in the video of these Soulbound reward card teams supplemented by Chaos Legion reward cards. And we're going to have Aftersound, Darkest Night, and Walking Keys on Splinterlands TV tomorrow night on my stream. And we're going to do that. We're going to put this to the test. We're going to use the Mav server to test it out, and we're going to see. And come hang out if you want to see how that works. If you're
gonna, for sure, I'm gonna try to be there, because that's one thing. When I've only done videos on 2 of the teams so far, and need to do it on the other one. But with both of them, I concluded like under 20 mana, those cards are garbage. A lot of them cost too much. You can't put a team together with more than like 2 monsters on the board. They don't necessarily work together. I'm like, you're going to get crushed by anybody with a full set of cards.
And this is the thing. What you said right there is the point that I've trying to emphasize in the comments on the video is that if you look at the bot teams that they're fielding today, they're not renting full splinters. They're not even renting all splinters. And if you check my Twitter, there's also details on win trading that's happening still today. But in either case, the bots don't need to have leaderboard level teams that have 80% win rates to be successful at farming SPS, right? And climbing the ratings, to get into the league levels they require. They can arguably have a less than 50% win rate and do just fine, Steve. So yes, they may not be meta teams. You're not going to want to take them into tournaments. They just have to have a chip in a chair. They just need to have the summoner.
It creates a different experience for the newer players and the players at the bottom of the ecosystem if the bot teams are no longer so much running meta teams, and they're just running teams that might win half the time or might win less than half the time. Because I understand, like, you could just run these, because if enough people are doing them, they're going to fight each other. And if we're both only using the soulbound cards, well, one of us has to win the battle.
Yeah, that's my point, Steve. I'm not talking about new player experience here. I mean, this video wasn't focused on new player experience, and if new players feel good about winning battles in bronze, right? This was a video talking about an exploit in the game, and I think you would probably agree, looking at all the facts, that this is a loophole or an exploit that can be exploited. Now, at the scale of what it can be exploited and how far it could climb up into, like in Diamond or Champion, is still to be discovered. But my point with the video wasn't to say that this is happening today, but to say that this could happen in the future. And if we don't talk about it, and if we aren't watching it, they'll just sneak up on us. And by the time it's too late, you can't take away soulbound reward cards once you have them on account. They're there. They're permanent. Like, you can take away starter reward cards, right? And if you look at one of my proposed options potentially to address the issue is to reduce or potentially remove earnings when using when using soulbound locked reward cards here, because of you can't take them away. But if it becomes a problem, this might be something we have to look at and put on the table. So again, yes, I agree that the new users would love to beat up potentially on soulbound only reward card decks. What is the impact to the economy and to the reward pools and to the earnings and to the SPS token if that happens? New players coming into the game are probably coming in not just to play a TCG, because there's plenty of TCGs out there they could play. They're probably coming to Splinterlands because of a combination of the game style and also the ability to earn. But if the value of SPS is not, let's say, 2 or 3 cents, which it is today, which is not great as it is, but if it's like, 0.002 cents, like, an SLP for Axie, you're not going to have a lot of new players to worry about a new player experience with at that point in time. So that's really the point of the video, was really to say, hey, let's at least, acknowledge there is a technical game mechanic loophole here, and then let's talk about it.
Yeah, I will admit there is, the way things work today, a possibility for people to try to build these accounts to do an exploit going forward. The question is, can they build them fast enough, and will player staking not just put an end to that exploit? For me, because that's kind of where my mind's at, is that nobody's going to be able to do this quick enough to really earn a lot, because if you're not fighting, at least I'd say in gold, you're not pulling down very many rewards. If you and there, I can't see somebody necessarily trying to spin up 100 or 200 bronze accounts or thousands of bronze accounts, knowing that player staking is coming, unless they're just hoping to do it for a very short period of time.
Yeah. So
because when I look at this, I mean, for me and my rewards playing in Diamond and Champion, I still have common cards I haven't even pulled, rare cards I haven't even pulled, a bunch of legendaries I haven't got. So, I mean, just like, it looks to me like it's going to take me close to a year to get a max set. Now, I understand a bot person doesn't need a max set; they can stop somewhere else. But sure, these guys are silver, but I don't even have this guy. I don't have this one. I don't have that one. I don't have, so I can't stop yet after one season. So you're going to need to put in what? At least 2 to 4 to get a silverish deck?
Possibly. I mean, we have to look at the numbers and the data, but if you go to Peak Monsters, the dashboard, right? And you look at the daily active accounts, I guess I'll ask a couple questions based on that, if I may.
Yeah, I mean, because like my account, I figured not a lot of people earned more than me, because I play in Diamond, I play in Champion, I earned 70 champion chests. Now, sure, there's some luck of the draw, but my account is on the higher end of the earnings. Sorry,
if you pull up the dashboard and give me
explore,
if you'll humor me. Right, pull up the dashboard and go to the daily active accounts, which is just a little bit down. You can see it spiked here end of season. I think it was like 235,000. Yeah,
232.
Yeah, and we're still averaging around 150,000, I think, roughly daily. Right. So let me ask you a series of questions, and maybe this will help illustrate the potential scale, right? Regardless of the timing, because you bring up a valid point, like how long is it going to take, to build a bronze deck or a silver deck or a champion deck with the rewards? But just walk with me here. So first question is, would you agree that there are bots in the Splinterlands ecosystem today?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
There's like 4 bots that are like almost endorsed partners.
Sure. So my next question would be is, if we say today we have between 200 and 150,000 daily active accounts, right? Well, I guess let's just pick somewhere in between. Let's say 175,000 daily active accounts, right? Of those 175,000 daily active accounts, would you think that more than 50%, or let's say just for round numbers purposes, 90,000 of those accounts are bots? Or
or
do you
at
think we
least
have more than 100,000 daily active players, human players?
I think I didn't used to think we did, but this right here finally made me think that we actually might have over 100,000 accounts, because this was when Soulbound first went live, right? And the big theory was, and it looks to be correct, it was that the bot users went, ECR burning crazy, had to shut down for 4 days, and then came back because they were trying to get as many of the cards that they could sell as they could.
Sure.
And then they were off. And then this was our real player base mostly playing, or irresponsible bots. Like, I run a bot on my account, but it never takes my ECR over under 70 because I like to be able to play myself a little bit too. And it's more just about me not having enough time and just using one of those services to augment my earnings of my assets. And I know some people wouldn't like that either. But so I was playing here. You were probably playing here. So I would say that this group of people were the people who were not extractors from the system, and we got as high as 105, 120, 140. Maybe some bots were coming back online here, and then clearly we got more into where a lot of them came back, and this was just everybody coming to claim their season rewards, right?
So what number of bots would you be comfortable with? 10, 100, 1,000, 2,000, 50,000?
I mean, I think you could say that there's somewhere between there. I could see 100,000 bots, but I could also see around 100,000 real players or people.
So give me a number of how many bots you think are reasonable for us to make an assumption with.
Somewhere between 50 and 100,000.
All right. So 75,000 meet in the middle.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. 75,000. So if we have 75,000 bots that we can agree on that are in the Splinterlands ecosystem, are those 75,000 bots earning rewards this season?
Well, yeah.
And what rewards are they earning this season?
Soulbound rewards cards.
And would you agree that these bots are probably playing in different league levels, meaning some might play in bronze, some might play in silver, and some might play in gold and higher?
Yeah, they definitely are mixed out into the ecosystem.
Okay. And would you agree generally that after 1 year of playing, whether you're a human or a bot, at the league level that you're playing at, you should have league level soulbound reward cards? Meaning, if you're a human or a bot player playing in bronze, after a year of playing that account steadily, you'll have bronze level cards. Or if you're a silver player, after a year of playing, you'll have silver level soulbound reward cards, or gold, etc. Is that reasonable after a year?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable from what I've seen so far. The data is pretty early, and I haven't really studied bronze and silver, but it looks like it's going to be that way for my champion account. And actually, I wouldn't mind personally if those cards were even a little bit higher.
Sure. So we can say it could be less than that, but it's probably not going to be more than that. Right. So we can say that it's probably reasonable expectations that within 12 months of basically farming or playing, you would have soulbound reward cards leveled to the league level that you're earning chests in and daily focuses and season chests, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say fast forward to a year from now, and you're a bot farm owner, and you've been renting for the last year to farm, right? Because that's what bot farms do, because they don't own the cards, they rent the cards. Now on your account that you've been farming for the last year, you have silver or bronze or gold level soulbound reward cards with summoners for all splinters, including dragon. Would you continue to rent cards at that point in time as a bot farm owner?
As a bot farm owner, probably not.
Or let me give you a second option. So you wouldn't rent cards on the account that has the free soulbound reward cards, correct? But you may create a new account and now create a new bot account and rent there and farm more soulbound rewards cards, correct?
Well, yeah. Obviously, if you already were profitable renting and playing, you can just spin up a new one and do the same thing.
Right. So most bot farmers, if they're smart, will do something like that. So instead of having 75,000 bots in a year from now or 6 months from now, whatever the period of time it is to get a bronze level deck or a silver level deck for free, you'll have, instead of 75,000 bot farmers, you'll have how many?
150,000. I see where you're going.
And what happens to the player base, the human player bases? Look at the accounts, the number of spell books we're getting daily. How many of those on that red line there are there?
In the 20s right now.
20s.
And then 15, 14. So
what's,
I don't know, a little bit around 20.
Yeah,
if you want to be generous.
Sure. What's 20 times a year? 365. How many is that? It's like 7,000 roughly? 7,000
Yeah, about
players?
7,000.
So let's say we add 7,000 new players. We don't lose any players over the next year, right? So we add 7,000 human players and we add 75,000 conservative bot players in a year, right? Are the reward pools in all the leagues growing or staying the same?
Well, they stay the same.
Mm-hmm. So who's getting the benefit here of this action, of player growth, basically? Are the bots earning more or less?
You know, I'd have to be convinced that other deck can win enough games to earn. So I'm going to have to kind of wait for your experiment tomorrow, because
sure.
I'm kind of the opinion that if you only have the free cards, at least this first set of free cards, you're not going to win very many games.
You do know
if you're
that
not
bots playing bots still earn, right? When bots play bots,
yes,
bots
that's
earn.
true. If there's not enough real players to beat them up, and especially if the team still makes them play each other, because we did find out that they were kind of making bots play each other a little bit more than play other people.
Yeah, which means even more earning for them for free. so you see where I'm going with this, right, Steve? And this reinforces the idea that I tried to illustrate in the video, is that this is a game mechanic problem. No matter how you slice or dice it, you can stick your head in the sand and say, there's nothing to see here, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe you, Tails. I won't believe until I see it. You're just causing FUD and what have you. That's not my purpose. I'm an investor. I hold a lot of assets in Splinterlands. I stream Splinterlands. I am a content creator for Splinterlands. My ultimate purpose is to make sure Splinterlands is successful and to continue to grow the game. But this is a technical problem that you cannot ignore. Now, you could say that, well, it's not going to be a problem. It'll be fixed by player staking, or it'll be fixed by this, or whatever. You can say that. That's fine. But you have to say that this, in a vacuum, is definitely a game mechanic flaw that, if left unchecked, could cause harm to you, the players. And if you disagree with that, revisit the last 5 minutes when I asked you basically 6 to 10 simple questions, and there's your answer.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I have a hard time looking at things in a vacuum in this conversation, mainly because we know these things are coming. And I feel like if you overreact to something that may be able to be exploited, if it's left the same way for long enough, like you said, like a whole year, for them to farm enough cards to have a full set of these at the correct level that they are invested at, then it would be like the idea that, you know, come the end of this year, we don't have SPS staking and delegation in place. We don't have land 1.5 in place. And if those two things don't happen, then I think Splinterlands is in more trouble, not because of the soulbound rewards cards, but because once again, they'll have missed on, you know, some major things that they said they were going to put out for us this year. And they're going to lose a lot of interest from some of their more big spenders who own a lot of land, who have been buying up all the bulk cards and are the main people who are meant to kind of fix this problem. Because
yeah, I agree with that.
Not only does land, because I was looking at it and, like, you know, I looked at one of the biggest printed rewards cards, right? So I went over here and I took one of the ones that got printed at like 1.700 million common cards. I forget where they are now. And I did the math, and that if you wanted to make a maxed out card, you end up getting somewhere around what do you call it? About 19,000, call it 20,000 to be safe, maxed out copies of a card. And that only will give you enough maxed out cards to go on 4,000 lands. and we have 150,000 lands that we need to put maxed out cards on. Now, I'm not saying every card is going to get maxed out, but not every card from any one of those rewards cards is going to end up on the land pile, because some of those cards are very good, right? Like not everyone is going to go stake their Pellicor Conjurer. That card gets used all the time. Same thing with the Mercenary, right? All of those cards, which are our most abundant, can still only cover, a couple regions for each one of them. And almost every single account wants some of those cards on them.
Yeah, for sure, Steve. I mean, we know that the card packs, whether it's Chaos Legion or Chaos Legion Rewards, was a huge faucet. Now we're waiting for the huge vacuum or the huge sink, and that's going to be land, right? So absolutely. Yeah. But that goes without saying. If the team didn't put some kind of vacuum or faucet out there for all this, sink for all these cards that they've put on the market, then we would obviously have a bigger problem, to your point. Yes.
Yeah, and then that doesn't just once you start seeing somewhere else for cards to go and somewhere else for them to be, and we don't know the earning potential of land yet because we don't know what land resources are going to trade for, but it's going to create a completely separate marketplace, which is going to be in direct competition with the rental marketplace for the game. Like currently, I'm somebody who's renting out something like $70,000 worth of cards on the rental market. As soon as land 1.5 comes out, I might be renting out none.
Sure.
All of those cards are going to go to work my land. And so I'm going to remove, 200 summoners from the renter pool. I'm going to remove multiple, level 6, level 8, level 2, level 4, because I level up my cards to either silver level or they're the ones that I have from older ones. They're all just going to disappear. And I'm not the only person who's going to do that. What do you think Neil, one of the biggest renters in the entire ecosystem, who has 2 regions, is going to do with all his cards? They're going to go to the land. Yeah. And so when that happens, the rental market is going to change dramatically, and these people aren't going to be able to rent cards nearly as cheap to play the game, and it's not going to probably be very viable to even rent and play full decks anymore at all. So for me, I feel like we're in an okay place as long as this happens in the next, I'd say, 3 months. Because when I look at the print rates of these cards, for me, maybe I got really unlucky this season, and I'll disagree with this thought, but I'm not going to have a close to a silver level deck worth of cards playing at the highest level of the game, probably for like at least 3 more seasons. I mean, because look, there's a bunch of cards I haven't even pulled one of. And some of them are even commons. I can't believe I haven't got one puppet.
Do you can you filter on gold foils as well, so we can see if that fills in the gap?
So it doesn't fill in the gap for the puppet. I don't have a gold any of these. It does skip ahead in some areas, right? Like I have a level 4 swamp splitter and a level 4 swamp splitter here, and I pulled 1 gold epic legendary. I wasn't one of those lucky guys that flipped over a gold legendary with a 3 on it. This was my luckiest pull. Was this? I got 6 of this guy. So I think I can put him.
It's like level 5.
4.
Okay.
Well, 1 more and I could get him to 7. But the real, to 5. But the real thing with this that's going to drive us all crazy is like this. My fire color, I'm 1 short of 5, right? 1 short. That could take me a day, a week, a month before I pull that card out of a chest again. So it's not going to be so clean and cut. And I think as we go forward, you're going to see that as long as player staking comes, so that the bots have to either stake SPS to keep earning the cards or stop doing it, it'll be like there's a fix to the problem that you've isolated out there already. It's just on the team to deliver the fix.
Sure. Yeah, and I mentioned, I think that in my video, is that if fix is not coming, then in the short to medium term, then the issue should be looked at, right? Because, like you said, I mean, if like player staking comes on tomorrow and land is released next month, yeah, I mean, then it's a whole different dynamic. We're looking at totally different data sets. But if the status quo is kept and these things aren't delivered on time and is a long gap, and when this functionality comes online, it should be something that's on the radar and it should be something that doesn't just get swept under the rug and is ignored.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but as long as the team in my mind is aware of this, and hopefully they'll address it a little bit in the town hall. And I would say that we go into the question area and people drop some questions and make sure that this gets brought up to them, that it's on their radar. Then it's almost a bit of a trap to the bot farm runners if they want to come in now and invest and renting cards and pushing these accounts forward, hoping that they're going to be able to earn forever for free with these. And I still think these are terrible teams.
I don't know. Have you seen Martyr and weapons training work together? It's pretty impressive.
I've used Martyr a little bit. I haven't been lucky enough to really pull usable weapons trainers, except for this guy.
That's
but I
one
still
of the
don't
best
use
ones.
him. He's under leveled for me still, even at 2.
Yeah, but I mean,
because I'm
his
playing in
weapons
Diamond
training.
all day.
So what you need is, and you've got the Idri fire.
Yeah, but she's at 1. I don't even have enough to get her at two.
It's fine. You're perfect. Try a battle. No, this is your main account right now, right? Try a fire battle and use Phyrexian Hero and Idria Fire at level 1 and 2. Let's
but even if they win, my reward shares are going to be slashed if I decide to use a level 1 and a level 2 on a diamond match.
No, I understand, but your point is saying that you can't win with these cards. I'm telling you that we can probably win with these cards right now in diamond. So
there's no way I could win with just these cards. No. Her and him are not going to win a match, and that's already with this summoner, which I don't have, mind you.
I'm going to challenge you, Steve. We're going to challenge you right now. We're going to challenge him. Let's go. Let's go.
Look, this card right here, I can't even do a complete team of these cards. I can't. Well, almost. Wait, can I? Okay. Well, I don't have the legendary. I can play the rest.
All right.
But you have to play a real team with legit cards, and I bet you'll crush me.
All right. What do you want to play, bronze or silver?
Go ahead and play silver, because we'll see if they can overachieve a little.
All right. You play whatever team you want. I'm gonna play Soulbound reward cards. Actually, I don't even know if I have the right cards. Can we do the Mav test server?
Oh, let me get over to Mav.
Yeah, let's do that, because I don't know what cards I have so far. Give me a second.
Let's show off our Mav status really quick in this extremely long video we're making. Sorry guys, but it's been a fun chat, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you want to fight in silver, and I can use anything, and you're just going to use Soulbound rewards cards.
I'm just going to use Soulbound reward cards and Chaos Legion reward cards.
And yeah, but you're already supplementing.
No, but my video, I specifically called that out. I said the delta between the starter ghost card deck and the Soulbound reward cards is filled by the Chaos Legion reward cards, which are plentiful and cheap.
But only plentiful and cheap because land isn't out yet.
Okay.
Now, don't stream snipe me.
I'm not looking at
we got that stupid mode.
What is the mode?
We got to start with 1 health mode.
Well, I'll just surrender. That
yeah. I did a challenge against somebody else on the Mav server the other day, and I got that same rule set. I'm like, how are you supposed to test anything? Cards at 1 HP.
We get it.
We got it again.
Jeez.
This is the other reason why those cards aren't going to do that well, because within the world of triple rule sets, you're not going to have the cards to counter all the different rule sets that came out.
But again, I say that you don't need.
Wow, are they making us do this right now for some reason? Because it's new.
I don't know. Maybe it's set to always select it. I don't know.
That's going to ruin your plan for tomorrow. If
it is.
If they're forcing that, that's crazy. 3 times in a row.
But my comment, yeah,
Wow, again.
maybe the test server is set to use
They must
this.
be they must be testing this.
Well, that's gonna
Sorry.
screw things up. Um, the well, again, the point is you don't have to have a world beater of a team with soulbound reward cards if you're botting it at silver or bronze, or maybe necessarily higher, depending on how many
Yeah,
bots
yeah.
are out there.
The one caveat obviously is that if they're just fighting other bots doing the exact same thing, then they'll win. But then if I'm a bot owner and I notice like, well, if I go ahead and spend the money on these cards, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to up my bots a little bit if I have the money so that they'll win at a higher clip so that I earn more money. And then the real key is we just need the great faucet, because once the great faucet is there, you're not going to have cheap cards anymore. And I could tell you, like, landowners, I only own 200 plots, and I come here all the time to this market, and I click here and I go, is anybody dumping a max level cheap? And every time I see one here for $4, I buy it. It's been what I've been doing, though I've been targeting rares because obviously I think rarity is better. And like this one right here is tempting because there's 26 in here at 4 cents. So I don't get any slippage on my way up. But they're already gone, man. And land isn't even out yet. Oh, here's a couple, but these ones aren't that cheap. Oh, that's because they over look at who did that. Do you think that this will work on land?
Over leveling the BCX.
Yeah, like because they said land is going to be, your earnings is going to be based on BCX. So if I did a 228 rare, would this thing actually farm at double the rate it's supposed to farm at?
I don't know. I'm sure. My guess is they put it like cap limit on the max level card would be 400 for a common. Would be my guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, why are these so expensive? These rares have been about $5 recently. It's kind of a bummer that the 25s don't work to make a max because they don't equal 115
right
in any way. You have to supplement with singles. But I mean, look, I mean, these cards are already, all of this stuff is out of print. There isn't any more coming. And I mean, even the big ones that are here, 12,000 on the market. And if you divide that one by 115, so that's 104 rares right here, a max level rares. I mean, 20 land plots. And there's another like 20 on these ones. But these cards are going to disappear. Without a doubt. These cheap ones.
mm-hmm.
At least I'm going to be doing my fair share of buying them. And once these are gone and the rental markets get expensive, I don't think it's going to be quite as easy for them to supplement those teams. And then when I just look at these cards, so rewards and then soulbound, and let's take gold off so this just isn't just that cluttered, and let's just look at fire. Like if you were to play this team so if you have him and this, that's probably the right lineup, right? Mm-hmm. So that's 14, that's 20 mana between these three cards.
Yeah, with Chaos Legion reward cards though, you get Venari Heatsmith at 3 mana.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know if I want to add these in, the Chaos rewards of the cards, because I think if they have to either own those cards or rent those cards, then it doesn't bug me as much anymore, because now in theory they've either made an investment or they're making an ongoing investment. Because if they want to play at diamond or silver, and for each one of their teams they're having to go out and buy 4 or 5 of those cards at level to make the team even somewhat playable, then they've made the investment that we wanted to force every bot maker to make.
Well, they're making the investment today by renting cards as well, Steve.
Well, yeah, and that's why in general, I don't think we mind that much that they're renting and playing. We're just trying to hope that they don't get to a place where they don't have to rent and play anymore, right? But I don't see how that's going to work, because I don't see how these cards are going to win. Because like this card, he can't even be played with this card. unless it's one of the rule sets that allows him to attack from the back. So like in a more standard-ish rule, though you don't see that very often, they can only put out these cards, these 5. So they can't even do a full team of 7 because he wouldn't do anything. And then their team is 6, 20, 29, 34, 37 mana before they can even get these 6 cards on the board. And it gets even more expensive if you wanted to take Urda Fire off and put in this tank instead. Now you're at 39 mana to put this team on the board. And this whole team leveled up and perfect. It might be competitive, but I don't think they're going to be competitive at anything low mana, like in the 20, 25s, 29s.
You're also not looking at dragons or neutrals either.
Well, yeah, okay. I guess I can throw these. No, wait, not these. These on the board. And then if you throw dragon on the board, then you'd be using this summoner instead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does this help the fire team? Not really. This guy would help, right? Because he's a low-cost card. So you can maybe get him on the board as like something in the 20, but it's really hard to put a really competitive team in there. You don't have the good cards that cost like 2 mana that are good. What does this guy end up doing? Again, no damage.
Yeah, remember you've got weapons training though.
Yeah, I guess you could throw him in front of this guy, right? Him in front of him. Sure. I don't see him as being super competitive though. I don't see them winning against somebody who drops like a Yodin or drops a really good kitty team on them.
Again though, but bots playing bots, you don't need to have Yodin to beat a bot.
Well, yeah, you're right. The bots playing bots is the ultimate problem, right? Because if they both have that same thing, then one of the crappy teams for the rule set has to win the match. So the main thing that we need to get to is just is player staking. They have to get it out, and just the staking to play to unlock rewards, and it should be pretty much just like CP, except for the numbers will be the thing is we don't know about the numbers, but it should be in the exact same format, right?
But
so for bronze,
weren't you saying earlier though, Steve? Because I don't want to quote you incorrectly, but I thought when we were talking before that you were saying that SPS player staking to earn would kill the game because new players wouldn't have any SPS or wouldn't want to stake SPS to earn.
No, that was when I was reading the original plan for SPS staking. And that's when I threw those questions at Matt in the town halls. And he specifically finally answered my question because it must have been important enough that he realized that the stuff in the white paper they weren't going to do. Because we had that discussion where you're like, well, in the white paper, you're going to have to stake onto the actual players. And I was like, but that's ridiculous. Nobody's going to be able to stake on the players that way. And now they're talking about using CP in a staking number here instead of CP. That is different to me because it doesn't stop the cards from earning, because you could still play here as a new player and earn, right? Because they would do the same thing. You could play in Bronze 3, you could earn really small rewards, you could try the game out, and then you have to get your SPS and stake, I don't know, 500 to go here, 2,500 to go here, 7,500 to go here, 20,000 to go here. That's maybe extreme because 20,000 SPS is kind of a lot to be in silver. So maybe these numbers are going to be a lot smaller, but that's what I see that they're going to be doing first. And they still might have the player staking game going on. But the first thing that they're talking about putting in play is this gating with SPS staking. And then we're going to have a rental market so you can come and get it. And is it going to be this high? Am I finally going to be glad that I have 350,000 staked SPS because I can still play in Champion? I doubt it's going to be 22,500, but they could go pretty big if their argument is, well, there's a delegation market out there and you can rent from the big old whales that have millions of SPS.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Like with all of this, whether it's land, whether it's player staking, you know, until we see the numbers, until we see the game design, you know, it's it's hard to say what it will be or what it could be. I think the good news is that I think a majority, if not all, of the Splinterlands community has trust in Matt's ability to balance it out and make it work, right? So that's a good news. But until then, it's all kind of speculation. So
Yeah, I think one of the sad things that has happened is that their inability to deliver things as quick as they thought they'd be able to deliver them, and the ending of the bull market really brought this to bear. Is that Matt thought out, I think, everything very well. They sold 150 land plots. He always knew they were going to have X amount of monsters staked into the land. That was always in his mind. He put out the Chaos Legion pack sale knowing how many monsters were going to be needed in the land. I'm absolutely positive of that when you look at the numbers, because without how big Chaos Legion was, I mean, could you imagine if Chaos Legion was 3 million packs and 150 land pots were coming out?
yeah, well, the land would be definitely a long-term play at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you'd just be like, there just isn't enough cards in the game. You'd have a terrible time putting anything in like level 2s on all of those land plots and playing it at a fast speed. And they're doing everything they can to have the land game be reminiscent of a classic pay to win, land building, earn titles, buy materials off the market to go faster, buy time crystals to go even faster, pay extra when you reveal to get bonus, go, spend. And I don't know what other players are doing, but I can tell you what it's got me to do. It got me to do this, and I'm not done yet, but my battery's balance is at
1.78 million.
Yeah, and it's going to go to 3. And it's going to go to 3 because I'm going to, on my 2 tracks, when I reveal them, I'm absolutely going to do the free building. Or not free building, but the 10,000 DEC from a building, because the way he made it described to us was like, hey, when you flip over your land, if you don't have a building there, you're going to have to figure out how to get bricks, wood, stone, and everything you need to build your building and collect it off your land when you don't have like in the beginning, when you're going to be collecting slower than you can at all.
Sure.
So being able to skip that first step and have a building immediately, so I can go right into staking my monsters and staking my DEC in the building and have them working, makes a lot of sense. So that's 2 million on 200 lands. And then I'm going to take a flyer on half of them with time crystals. But that's more of a, can I make my money back? Because I don't want to be a whale who goes crazy on time crystals, but we get them at a 60% discount. So in theory, I can resell them at a hopefully 30% profit and then get some of that money back, which hopefully builds up me a pool to help me put DEC onto the land.
Yeah, and this is what I love, Steve. I love the meta planning and strategic, positioning you're doing, buying batteries, and with taking into account the DECP discount and how you could resell and how you could take that and change. This is what's happening at a lot of levels of the game for a lot of landowners, because you can't do anything with land right now. And I know we don't have a lot of details, but I bet you're not the only one that's going through and planning this stuff, right? With at least the information that you have. Because everyone I think has finite resources, right? Whether it's DECB, whether it's cards, whatever it is. And if you have a large number of plots to deal with, you're going to want to put in a strategy, that gets you the most value for what you're willing to invest initially, right? So it's great.
And this is going to pass, right? Yeah, this one's going to pass.
Mm-hmm.
It's at 78 with that's almost as most votes as it usually gets, 200 million. Right. Well, we get 250 million now on a vote. So, but yeah, when this goes live, it's our first chance to off to the races. I'm not going to bother with unstable totems because, in my mind, productions are going to be low in the beginning. So doubling a low number is not that big of a deal. Oh, you're earning 2 a day now. You're earning 4. I mean, it's double, but it's not, to me, the kind of impact that you need for that amount of money. But I could be wrong on that.
Remember the initial prices of Chaos Legion cards or Rift Watchers was a little bit of an anomaly because actually the price went up afterwards. But for most things, usually for cards, usually it's the first couple days where everything spikes to crazy, where no one has anything and they're all just trying to level everything up. Same could be said for resources. The faster you can create or get resources to market, let's say the first month, let's say wood is selling for 10 DEC per piece. Maybe after starting in month 2, when everyone's got everything making more productive stuff, maybe price drops to 5 DEC per wood bundle or whatever. So where you may not be producing the quantity you would ideally want, maybe the price of the goods that you're creating or make it worth it. Still to be determined, right? But something to consider.
Yeah, that's one of those things. It's such a weird speculation. I have a couple totems. It's just I can see the for me the building makes sense, because if not, if you don't do the building, there's no way you do the totem, right? Because why would you want to double it if you're not going to skip ahead to having a building? And then the time crystals is more of a financial play. Is a hope that there's enough whales out there that they'll buy my energy crystals off of me cheaper than what Splinterlands will be selling them for, right? Because it's going to be one of the first times ever that any of those play to
Web 2 kind of
like play to win or play to speed games is going to allow me or you to sell the crystals that lets people skip ahead.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting thing they're letting us do. I mean, if I could get to 4 million DEC before it flips, I could think about going time crystals on all 200 plots. But if people don't want them, then you can't sell them. So I wish I had a better feel for the land community, but a lot of the big holders are not super. They keep things close to the vest.
Yeah, for sure. Has Matt confirmed if those crystals or building upgrades will be sellable, or are those soulbound?
The crystals are sellable.
The crystals are, okay.
Yeah, they did confirm in the proposal that the crystals were sellable. The building is not, and the totem is not, but the crystals are.
Good to know. Good to know.
Right here. So the time vault, pay a fee in order to see the purchase of a transferable token.
Ah, there it is, transferable token. Yep. Okay.
Called time crystals. So I'll be able to sell them to other people, and since you're getting a 60% discount, that leaves you somewhere between 30 and 40% profit you could probably make.
But the discount they're calculating there is based on the DECB purchases, or is it just based on the...
No, it's based on time crystals. So right now the company is going to sell them for 50 cents per hour, right? And they're going to give you 48 hours for $10, which is 60% off. Gotcha. So basically, there'll be a marketplace where you can sell them cheaper than 50 cents. People will buy them for new, and then you're paying roughly 20 cents, I guess, right? 60% discount, I think, or something around there. So if we can sell them for 30, 40 cents, you can make a profit, pretty good profit. And it's only if you pre-buy them when you flip your plots.
So basically those landowners that have the ability, have the plots to buy these, even if they don't use them, they should still be able to roll back the profits there into their land at some point. Ideally,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then but if there's enough whales out there that want them, because like some whales, the whale players would be able to buy these for this price too. They'd have to use everything they have before they come to the market and buy them. That's why I don't want to go too crazy on it, and get like as much as I can. But I figured I'd do 100, like half of my plots, because that way I can keep some of them to use, and then hopefully eventually sell some of them to get some more DEC, because they're going to make us stake ungodly amounts of DEC until then.
Sure. And the time crystals don't have a time limit on them like the totems, right? The totems can only be used in the first month. The time crystals will be indefinite usage, right?
Yeah, the time crystal will be indefinite usage, and you use a crystal, get something done in an hour quicker. Nice. So they did say, like, this building, instead of you having to collect resources to build it, basically on day one, you can click the build button and you can stake monsters into it, and then the monsters will build the building, but it might take 24 hours.
Unless you have
right?
time crystals.
And then, but if you bought 48 time crystals, you could burn 24 of them, and bam, your building is done as soon as land begins.
Nice.
And you're collecting. So that's where I said there it's an exciting thing, because one of the things Splinterlands doesn't have that some other games has is a way for you to really flex.
And that's what you're talking about at the beginning of the stream too, right? Those players in the mobile games that literally dump tens of thousands of dollars just to be on the leaderboard for no value getting back other than just the exclusivity of dominating that game, right? Now you have that kind of style or option now in Splinterlands, which has never been there. Really. I mean, I guess alpha gold tournaments maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, but the problem with that, with the Alpha Gold tournaments, though, is it's not celebrated the way land's going to be. They've already described to us, that like the region that does things first are going to get certain titles. The people who produce the most resources are going to get titles, and they're going to be additional titles within the game. And I don't know about you, but I think I'm going to cover land more than the game when land comes out, or at least stream about it enough to let people know what's going on, because it's going to be something pretty interesting to see who really steps up and really builds and really goes hard into this, and who kind of goes kind of slow. Because like one thing I heard on Gank and Walking Keys stream that kind of surprised me was Gank owns a region, and this almost worries me a tiny bit. He said he was only going to maybe a survey around 100 of his lands, because and that he would do this one, he'd do the building in a box. He would do these, but for kind of the same thing I'm doing, where you're just getting them at a discount, so you might as well buy them, because how often do you get to buy something 60% off of cost? And then he won't use this because he said he has a lot of totems from buying his region. So, but if a lot of region holders are only doing that, then that would mean, in theory, me with 2 tracks planning to do all 200, build my buildings instantly on all 200 of them, buy half the time crystals, and take my entire fleet of rental monsters cards and put them into land. I appear to be going harder than Gank, but he has a region.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know where everyone's mind is at, because it almost sounded like he was going to spin up 100 lands, spin them up kind of hard, so maybe his 100 will have all max level monsters on it, and then use those to pay to be able to do that on the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be an interesting kind of couple of weeks, but we should probably end it here. Otherwise, no one's going to watch this video.
Sure.
It's been a long one. Anything you want to end with?
No, I think it was a good conversation.
It's going to die.
No. I mean, hopefully this acts to, answer or address any questions that people had on the topic. And yeah, again, hopefully it generates some conversation and we get some additional details, or at least next steps here, because again, I think undeniably there is a game mechanic issue here. Whether it's exploitable based on scale or time or other factors is yet to be determined. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you. There is an exploit that is going to take a couple, in my opinion, months to set up, and then people would be able to free roll bots that could earn rewards, and that's all you have to say. And people do have to realize that is coming, because as much as I tried to fight you, you're right. They're going to be able to fight each other, and I might beat them every time I play them and be really happy to be matched up about them because it was an easy win. But as long as Steve 1 can fight Steve 2 sometimes, they're going to win matches, and they're going to leech rewards. And that's kind of how the Soulbound reward leechers did it in the past.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.